Hello, students. Welcome to the video lecture on acting and characterization. Let's go to the next slide. Okay, so today what we're going to do is we're going to look at the way the role performance and introduce the way acting plays in characterization. We're going to look at a brief general history of acting in motion pictures, and then we're going to focus on Bao and how Bao is really, at its core, a characterization of the immigrant experience. So, the importance of performance to characterization. We talked about the ways movies will present their characters to you in a previous lecture and in previous classes, but Barsom, in his book, provides critical evidence that film is a human medium, in that it's the human performance, it's the human material that we go to see when we go to see a movie. Even if it's an animated movie or a superhero movie or whatever, like any other art form, it's about human connection and communication that gives film its power. So even in animated films like Bao, they are made by people to communicate ideas and entertainment to other people. So even completely animated forms still capture the human material that we go to see. So, one of the things to think about as we move in, especially next week, and learn to discuss the role acting plays, is that acting is one of the areas of filmmaking that directors don't have as much total control. All right? Even though actors, costume designers, screenwriters, stunt performers, special effects people may all go together to combine and create the character, when it comes down to a portrayal of the character, when it comes down to actually being a person doing the stuff, the actor still carries a ton of power and decision making. So, if any of you have seen a play or a Broadway musical or anything like that and watched a movie, you will notice that acting on the stage, acting live in front of people, is different than acting when you are being filmed for a movie. So, here are some differences. From Barsom, from the book. Stage actors convey their interpretations of the characters directly to the audience through voice, gesture, and movement. So when you go to watch a play or a musical, you'll see big movements, and their faces will have big gestures because they're playing to the back seats. They're trying to make sure that even if you have the worst seat in the building, you can still see the emotions and facial expressions of the character. Also, the major difference is in stage acting, you will present the play or musical in order. Essentially, if you were to read it, what is being performed in front of you is the exact order in which it reads in the script. Now, compare that to acting for the screen. Movie actors, using gesture and movement and voice since the coming of sound, convey their characters directly to the camera. So movie actors are not playing to a room full of people and making sure the people in the front can understand it just as much as the people in the back. What they do is smaller gestures, smaller movements, because the camera lens can be so much more intimate and close to their performance. Right? And in addition, movies are also often done in a patchwork style. You shoot a movie out of order, of course, for budgetary and costume and a whole bunch of reasons. So a movie actor has to kind of work scene to scene, knowing that it'll be all put together at the end, as opposed to starting in order and going all the way to the end. So here are some just examples of what we mean. Here are 3 pictures of various stage plays, and if you look at the facial expressions and the posture and their acting and the way they're holding their body, they're big, huge gestures. They're performing to the back seat, so to speak, of the theater. And now here are some screen caps just for some movies. And if you just look at the faces of the people in close-up, you see that they're much more subtle expressions. They're much more withdrawn expressions. They're much more working with acting through their eyes as opposed to big facial expressions, because the camera can be a much more intimate form of acting. Next, and this will become especially important as we go to watch Lost in Translation next week, there are 4 types of film actors, all right, as described in our book. There are personality actors, actors that take their persona from role to role, actors who deliberately play against our expectations of their persona. This is heavily connected to number one. You have to have a persona in order to switch it up and fool us. 3, you have chameleon actors, actors who seem to be different in every role. And then you have non-professional actors, actors that don't have any experience in acting when they are cast in the movie. So, obviously, probably the greatest living persona actor that we have right now is Tom Cruise, followed up a close second probably by Will Smith. So, we expect Tom Cruise to have this type of a Mission Impossible persona. He's an action star. But he has taken movies like Magnolia, An Interview with a Vampire, where he plays particularly against the type of Mission Impossible action movie running real fast Tom Cruise. So Tom Cruise is a good example of a personality actor and a personality actor that has played against his type as a performer. Chameleon actors, Daniel Day-Lewis, Meryl Streep are oftentimes considered one of this. So here are 4 pictures from 4 different movies from Daniel Day-Lewis, and you can see he's completely different in each one. From Lincoln to My Left Foot to Gangs of New York to the movie 9. Like, it's all different. It almost looks like a different person each time, and he's very famous for that. Finally, the last group are non-professional actors. These were actors that had no experience in acting, that were cast simply because of their look or their impression, or because the director wanted a sense of realness of their performance. All right. So in the Florida Project, these 2 actors were not professional actors when they were cast. Italian realism as a style. The Bicycle Thief was famous and one of the first major films to just cast the citizens of Italy, the citizens of Rome, working class citizens, to get a sense of their struggle. And then most famously Roma, very recently, which we can see on Netflix, is an example of non-professional acting. So, we will discuss acting really heavily when we move in to discuss Lost in Translation, especially with the performances of Bill Murray and Scarlett Johansson in that film. It's an acting film, all right? It's less about plot and more about performance. But let's finish up and look at Bao here. Even though Bao is an animated film, the performance of the animated characters tell us a story. It is, again, a story that is not keen on plot and first act, second act, third act. It's more about the characters and their experiences. So, the main thing I want us to focus on in Bao is how Bao tells the story of an immigrant mother and son that learn to build a new relationship. The performance, though digital, tells us everything we need to know about the characters in an indirect manner. We are never told who these characters are, but we are shown through their digital performance who they are as characters. So, let's look at the initial characterization of the mother. All right? So, the mother starts off the short film. She's cooking in the kitchen. After she makes the quite delicious looking and real looking dumplings, we see her framed in this shot. Look at her face in this shot. This is a face that is not 100% contented. Look at the way she is framed in the window. All right? Even though it's a house and it's her house, she's some way confined and blocked in by this house. If we think of this as a Disney Pixar movie, this is almost her princess shot of sort of like Rapunzel. She is trapped in the kitchen in the house. Now, as we watch the movie, what we see is that her activities with her son move her from the domestic space of the house to more interaction with the country that she's living in. All right. Next up, the dumpling son. All right, the son that is a dumpling and is also a real boy. It's important to remember that the dumpling son is a metaphor. Okay. We see the dumpling son grow up throughout this short film. And as we get different stages of his growth, we get new elements of characterization that let us understand very quickly that he's getting older. All right? He starts to wear clothes. He starts to put on glasses. As he gets older, he grows a little chin-strap beard of sesame seeds to show that he has moved even past kid age to more of an adult age. As he grows, his characterization not only reflects him becoming an adult, but also reflects the change in his identity. The dumpling son is a first generation immigrant. So, being a first generation immigrant, growing up in the country of Canada, he is more comfortable with sort of a dual identity, being both Asian and Canadian. All right, he's more comfortable with that because it's the only thing he's ever known. So that's why he is more comfortable with friends, more comfortable going outside, has pictures of Western culture, posters of Western culture in his room, because he has a different identity than the mother. So this growing identity as a sort of hybrid cultural identity comes in conflict, of course, when he brings home his girlfriend slash fiance. This moment in the film brings together all of the issues of being an immigrant family, along with the issues of just normal kids growing up and how that affects parents in general. It kind of takes the two parts of the story and combines them together in this brief scene. The fact that the girlfriend is Caucasian is important, as it shows the son has a different cultural identity than the mother. All right, he's bringing home somebody who is of a different race, a different nationality, a different ethnicity, and as anybody who has experiences with multicultural relationships, that can be quite trying, and we've seen that portrayed in media a bunch of times. You know, and we see the reaction of the mother here. We see her characterization of she is surprised and not very happy with this scene. The scene where she eats the dumpling. That's an important part of characterization because it shows her trying to possess her son, trying to keep her son like her, all right? Which the theme of the film is that can't happen because one, as kids grow up, they change, all right? They become their own person. And two, as a son who is a first-generation immigrant, he's growing up with a different cultural history than she did. He can't be exactly like her because he grew up in a different country with a different culture. All right, so he kind of is straddling this new identity that she feels very uncomfortable with and would like to keep it all the same, which obviously you can't do, which is why she cries and it leads to the brief breakup in the film. But since this is a very cute and very nice story, a very heartwarming story, everything does get resolved. So we see the son and his real way he looked throughout the film. So it's important to remember that the dumpling son is just a metaphor. It's just a metaphor of how the mother looks at her baby as her little quote unquote dumpling. All right, much as we might call all sorts of cute names for little babies and kids. All right, so the happy ending of the film is important. One, we see the son as a real person. All right, we see the fact that he is just somebody who is living his life and is a real person. And two, the very, very ending scene, we see a really happy moment where this family is growing together as a hybrid immigrant family. All right, the girlfriend surprises the mom and son by making these perfect dumplings where the son can't do it, and that's a real statement that this family is growing into their new identity. When we talk about hybridity in relation to immigrants and people's ethnicity and nationality, there's a long history of that we can discuss in our virtual class. But at its core, it means that people that have, first generation and have different ethnic statuses from the dominant in a country exist in a hybrid state where they are in between and have a bit of both. So, like the son is Asian Canadian, so he is both Canadian and Asian, and he's bringing together these two cultures because that's what he was born into. Unlike his parents who grew up in a different country and moved, it's a different experience. So this represents a family changing into a new identity, changing into a new hybrid family of multiple cultures. That's sort of the end of the characterization that both the mother and the son go through in this very short film. All right, thank you very much, and I will see you at our next class.